Welcome to another Gran Turismo 6 quick match tutorial. This time around we have the 400 performance point production car or truck or Gixxer or whatever else. It doesn't even really have to be production, but whatever. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Event at Tsukuba Circuit, or however you pronounce that. Y'all know what I'm talking about. And as always, this will be a tutorial with the Dodge Ram. The tune is the same as the last tutorial, except that the acceleration sensitivity is on 60, which is the max settings both front and rear, instead of, I think it was 20 and 40 was what it was last time. Because this time around, with 100 less performance points, there's no wheel spin whatsoever. So I may as well max the acceleration out, given that there ain't wheel spin, just so it accelerates as quickly as possible. So on to the lap itself. The biggest difference between 400 and 500 performance point racing is there's like a lot more margin for error, in the sense of you ain't going as fast, and there ain't really as much pushing to get like an absolute to the max line, like as close to walls as possible, because the scuba is wider in general. So I've already about ran as good of a lap as I truly think I can, and my best lap is a 105.5. In the other event, I ran like a 133.5, and I thought I could only get like 2 or 3 more attempts. I ended up getting over a second. In this, I truly really think 2 or 3 more attempts would be a downright perfect, completely lap, because there ain't really any areas to cut. There ain't really any areas to, like, slowly improve or whatever and get a line down, just because these cars are so slow. So anyway, on to the lap itself, which is already about as good as I'm going to get. This is the run-up to it. The Ram is pretty much what you tell it to do is what it does. There's no kicking the rear end out. There's not really any oversteer or understeer. This is a big stable pickup that is, there's really no way to describe it, because it's exactly how it's described. It does exactly what it's supposed to. And for this, pretty much just go at your own merit here. I haven't actually tested the absolute max you can go here without getting a penalty, because I've actually been leading the vast majority of races, and I didn't want to risk it. The Ram is really good at this one, because there's a whole heck of people low accelerating zones here. Low acceleration zones, low accelerating zones, whatever. But anyway, to do this best, you want to run as much on that rumble strip or whatever that's called as possible there. The max I've been able to go off the turn is about 80, as y'all can see there. And then run to the line. Make sure by the time you're at the line, you're all the way off the rumble strips there, just to make sure you avoid a penalty. For this turn, you go up to about 95 or so. I think I just barely clicked 95 before I started braking. Pretty much once you just barely click 95, start braking. There's a little bit of trail braking here, but it's not really all that much, because the cars are just slower in general. I do slide a little bit, sort of, kind of on purpose here. It's not really sliding as much as friction, I think, because there's just not really enough power to truly slide at 400 performance points. I think it's just the tires being to the max on the track, which creates friction, and therefore there's smoke more than anything. There, it's not like I'm loose or anything. And then off the turn there, it's not hard. As I said before, there's no wheel spin, there's no wiggle. It's going to do what you think it's going to do. And for this, I assume it's okay to use a little bit of grass there, especially in a Ram, because it's 4-wheel drive. It's probably not going to hurt it. For these turns, I don't really risk cutting too much yet. That might be where there is about a tenth or so, and this is really about the only section where I could truly think of where cutting could get you a little bit more, is just run those more straight. I mean, I don't have to slow down to turn here, obviously, but still, every little motion you do is that much speed lost. But all in all, I bet that would still, even running it completely straight, no turning whatsoever, and if or if not you get a penalty there, I don't know. But let's say you don't, that's still probably only going to be not even a tenth, honestly. But nonetheless, to this turn, slow down a little bit before your rear end gets to the start of that little rumble strip there. The way those rumble strips are angled, I really see no use in using those. I don't honestly know what vehicle would use a rumble strip all the way to the end of them there. Definitely not the Ram. And for this turn, I tried a little bit using that raised rumble strip there, but it doesn't really seem like it helps because I guess your Ram is a bigger vehicle. So the wider out you go, the more momentum you can carry in general, and just trying to woe a big vehicle down to get on those ain't really worth doing. Maybe a smaller vehicle it might be worth it, but a Ram not so much. And for the run out, it's, as I said, it does what you think it's gonna do. And here, again, probably a little bit of grass ain't gonna hurt it. For the next run, go out to the left there. And another thing that I found here, I didn't actually do it particularly here, but it sort of kind of works, is if you get your rear tire a little bit on the grass before you turn the rear left tire, just a little bit, it makes your car sort of turn in a little bit better because it drifts slightly. And then you can take this next turn full throttle if you do it perfectly, but that's a little bit risky, and again, that probably gains you barely anything. Like here, I let off just barely. If you skid a little bit, you lose that much speed anyway, and then you can take the turn full throttle. So whatever you want to do at your own discretion there. I just played it relatively safe there because I was on a really good lap. I'm not even 100% sure if that truly gains any time. Just in theory, full throttle would gain time, but in reality, I'm also skidding a little bit too when I do that, so I don't know. If it is any time, it's barely any. But also for this turn in general, I think this turn is one of the few that has correct, like, boundaries. Like, this turn would make your lap quicker if you cut it, but it's, as far as I can tell, correct penalty system. As long as you have 2 tires on the track, it ain't going to be a penalty, but if you have 3 or 4 over, then it is, because I'm pretty much right on the edge here, but no penalty. So that's actually one of the rare times where it's correct penalties there, which is good. Good job, PD. Good PD logic. And for that, it's okay to use that rumble strip there, probably if any car, because there's no grass. Just make sure you get off it by the time the grass starts. For the next turn, you don't actually want to be right on the apex there. It's good to go a little bit out here, because the farther you go out, the more momentum you can carry on the straightaway. And coming up, I'll say, not necessarily a weakness, but just sort of a trend of all the cars doing here, and I mentioned this in the special taking. The Ram gets super good accelerating off every turn, and that's why it's actually really good around here. The only vehicle I've yet to see truly be better than Ram is a Gixxer, and those are better than all of them. The Ram might very well, all in all, be the second best vehicle here, because it just has such crazy good acceleration. But one of its weaknesses is coming up here. About here, 80 or so, a lot of cars are going to start out accelerating it. The Ram has the trend of, if you detune a faster car, it doesn't have as good of a top end. If you modify a slower car, then it generally has a better top end. Like for 500 performance point, where the Ram's base performance point is a little over 400, so I'm modifying it, it has a good top end, but in this one I have to detune it a bit, so it hurts the top end. But this is really the only point in the track where it's going to be all that big of a deal. So as long as you have more than about a, I would say probably 2 or 3 feet on a car behind you, you're going to stay in the lead as long as it's about to this point. Because the Ram does handle really good, especially for how much it weighs. For this turn, it's really the exact same as the run-up. I don't really think there's all that much difference you need to do in between run-up and actual best lap. And again, we're also like the other one where this ain't a time trial anyway. It's just sort of your own discretion here. It doesn't really matter how fast your fastest lap is. Just you can use this in general for all laps and then slowly improve as you get better. your fastest lap is relative because it goes race by race. There's no qualifying for races, but still, it's good to know the lines to take in general. And for this turn, pretty much slightly under 80, and you're going to do it fine in the Ram. I've tested it, and I actually have gone about 80 through it, but I took a wider line, so the more testing I do, the more I figure out that wider line equals more distance traveled, which in theory would be slower, but I also took more speed there. So, in general, in racing, on a curve where it's close to full throttle, which this one is, generally the lower line is the faster line, so I just took that logic into this, and I don't really see why it would be wrong. It makes logical sense. And again, once you're off the turn, if you're at 80, you're doing good, and then run to the line, and then you should indeedy dandy have your best lap. Which again, my best was a 105.531, and the fastest Gixxer I've seen yet is like a 103 something. But literally the only cars I've actually seen truly faster than the Ram are the Gixxers, which is to be expected because those are overpowered. So I hope y'all enjoyed this and learned something from it. And this event isn't quite as fun as a 500 performance point to drive just because there ain't as much power there. There's really not much on edge here. Pretty much the Ram does exactly as you expected it to at all times, and there's really no, like, adrenaline or whatever. You can't really drift it all that much unless you just completely power slide it, which ain't even really a drift. And I think, though, the racing is going to be better. So you definitely want to know how to go fast so that you can make the racing that much better. Even though it necessarily ain't as fun of a drive, the race is going to make it, you not notice it as much, hopefully. So I hope y'all enjoyed this, and I hope y'all learned something from this. And if I can get a 104, I'll redo the tutorial, but I'd be very surprised if I did that. Now, granted, I was very surprised I got a 132.4 last time, but different track with different performance point. We'll see, folks. We'll see. Yeehaw!